Does this one take you back like it does me? Or what's your take on the significance of this? At the individual investor level, I'm not sure people would feel it that much unless you're trading a lot.
That's right. I mean, it is for the folks who are trading a lot that have benefited from this. And this has been a commodity for a long time. And now the price has gone down from what it was in the 1990s, very high, to zero. And so the brokers have to make their money elsewhere. Lots of other places they can make it. And as Becky said, it's about scale. You look across the businesses, there's so many things that they don't need to do twice. And so those things will be consolidated or dropped and ultimately be more profitable.
Kate, part of the reason we've even seen this is because of the disruption coming out of places like Silicon Valley, names like Robinhood that really kind of pioneered this idea of zero commissions, if you will. What is this going to do to the startup landscape? And is there an argument to be had that all of those millennials and Gen Zers that have been flocking to these startups are actually going to now find it more attractive to go to a Charles Schwab, for example?
Hey, Morgan, absolutely. So Robinhood really set the stage with zero commissions, but you also have names like Square and SoFi. Doe is another one that are in that space and could probably feel some pain. You also have Wealthfront and Betterment on the wealth management side. So there has been pressure now that there's zero fees from other people, but that's not enough to get customers in the door or necessarily keep them. So they're launching more banking products. You've seen a ton of these guys launch either cash management or some sort of deposit account. So they really need to up their offerings in the banking space, which, as you guys know, is not easy and takes some time. There's also, analysts have said for a long time, that there's potential when these guys hit a certain level of assets in those accounts, that there's not a lot stopping them from moving to a Charles Schwab. Now that they have the scale, they can probably spend more on technology. They call it the Henry is the acronym, the high earner, not rich yet. So when those people get to a certain amount, if Charles Schwab has that scale and offering, there's not that much to slow them down. And Becky mentioned M&A. Analysts have been surprised for a while that we haven't seen more M&A in private markets. Now that people are trying to compete, you could see M&A on either the robo-advising side or some of these startups.
Well, Henry, you used to be a Henry, right? I mean, but you sold, cashed out, and that now you got to change your name a little bit. Sorry, go ahead, Morgan.
I was actually just going to touch on the same thing and get your reaction, Henry, to the Henry, and this idea of whether some of these big brokerages that are now potentially going to become bigger, whether they can attract some of those younger generations.
Well, I would say one thing that's happening in the financial services industry is this generational shift where you have Robinhood and Betterment and the others. They really have gotten that early millennial audience. The bet from a lot of the traditional financial services industry is, oh, well, we'll just let them get rich, and then they will move the money to us. And my guess is actually you're going to see a lot of folks stay where they are. And if Robinhood develops other capabilities and so forth, the money may be stickier than folks think. And so I think, to the point, I do think we'll see a lot more consolidation here. These firms do not they benefit from being enormous.
All right. Kate Rooney, thanks for being with us. Henry, before you go, we do want to get your thoughts on Facebook. Dow Jones reporting the company is considering changes to its political ad policy. Not perhaps a huge surprise, especially given Twitter. Jack Dorsey moved quickly on this one. Google just out on not saying they're not going to do political ads, but narrowing the ways that they can be targeted by, I believe, location, a couple of other categories, but not on down to exactly how people are voting.
Yes, and I would be willing to bet a little bit of money that this was a prime topic at the dinner between the President of the United States and Mark Zuckerberg, because the changes reportedly would have a big impact on the Trump campaign strategy on Facebook, and that was used very effectively in the last election, so a lot of concern around that. But it is interesting to see Facebook doing something. Again, they made the point, you can lie on the platform, that's fine. There was huge blowback for that. Now they're approaching it from another side and saying, okay, if we can control the targeting a little bit, at least we are doing something.
It's been a wild hour of social media headlines. We get this from Dow Jones on Facebook. Wire is also saying Twitter is going to enable users to hide their replies. So some incremental movement here in the way people use these platforms, would you say?
As there will continue to be, and stepping back from all of this, and this is a multi-year trend, I think the social platforms and platforms like YouTube will just gradually raise the bar for the level of discourse and content that they're distributing. The original idea was, we have no responsibility, do whatever you want. And then the platforms realized, well, actually, there are some things that we don't want on there, and I think that bar is going to continue to get raised.
I'm not sure where this is going to take us, though. I mean, maybe Google has done some work and run some numbers and figured out exactly what they get when they eliminate some ways of targeting political ads. But I wonder, at some point, do we need to see the models for what happens when you start limiting the reach of political ads, whether it really is good, whether there are some unintended consequences? I'm not saying regulation necessarily, but transparency.
Yes, and the problem is it's extraordinarily complicated. All of these decisions are going to be second-guessed. You've got two very sophisticated teams that are going to say, oh, you're penalizing our team, it helps the other team. Huge political conversation. So the companies are in a very tough position. There's no question. But I think we saw with Facebook, when you come out and say it's totally fine to lie and use our platform to spread misinformation, people are going to say, wait a minute, it doesn't feel right. There's got to be some better solution.
Lying in politics? Would that ever happen?
Never.
It's different now. You've got to admit that. We're at a different level here.